Hello, friends. This is Confessions with Amy, and I'm glad you're visiting my channel. Here we share new confessions every day.
My name is Madison Harper. I'm 40, and I always thought that nothing in this life could knock me down. I worked my way up from junior lawyer to senior partner at an Austin law firm, learning to understand people, keep a balance between career and relationships, and build everything from scratch. I seemed to know how to handle any crisis. But on the morning of June 12th, I learned that even the most stable woman can stumble, if not by her own will, then by someone else's betrayal. I was sitting in a bright hotel room in Chicago, drinking coffee and getting ready to meet a new client. Ryan, my husband, was on a business trip to Seattle, and to be honest, I haven't seen much of him lately. But I didn't complain. We were both busy. We were both adults. At least, that's what I thought. The phone vibrated in the silence of the room, as if warning her beforehand that it wasn't just going to be a text message. Madison. I'm not coming back. I met another woman. We've been together for weeks. I transferred money from the account. That's what makes me happy. Goodbye. I read it 4 times. The first was surprise. The second is peace. Yes, peace. Because this message was just the latest confirmation of what I'd already been feeling for months. A farewell that he finally plucked up the courage to send. Let in cowardly, through text. I answered, all right. I wasn't thinking about revenge. I wasn't angry. I didn't cry. Instead, I opened the banking app. As I suspected, he managed to transfer the money. But, not all of them. The main part has long been distributed to my individual investment portfolios, created, in case of what. I wasn't paranoid, I was realistic. A lawyer. A woman who has learned not to rely on anyone but herself. I closed my laptop. I looked at my reflection in the mirror. My makeup was flawless, my hair was styled. Madison was still looking back at me. Just a little freer. I took a light dress out of my suitcase, put on heels, and drove to the meeting. The client didn't even notice that something went wrong. And do you know why? Because no matter what, I was fine. And I'll show you just how good can sound. When I got back to Austin, the house was quiet, too regular, too clean. There was only one key on the marble kitchen countertop, not a bunch, not a bundle, but a single one. Ryan didn't even bother to leave a note. I took off my coat, took off my shoes, and went into the living room. He took away his books, his vinyl collection, and his favorite chair to sit in the evenings. But there was still an album of our photos on the coffee table, wedding photos, trips to Utah, Rome, Mexico. I didn't open it. It wasn't nostalgia anymore. It was an archive. Closed chapter. While I was putting the kettle on, I got a call from Sam, our financial advisor. He only worked with me for a long time, because Ryan was bored with discussing investments. We talked for exactly 3 minutes. I knew what I was doing. He transferred 30%. Sam asked. Just as long as I'm allowed, I said calmly. All movements on its part are tracked. He doesn't know that you and I changed our access rights 6 months ago. Sam nodded silently, and I felt respect on the other end of the line. The next day, I called the real estate agent. Our beach house in Port Aransas, which Ryan said he had already sold, was still listed as our joint property. The sale was indeed on hold, either by accident or perhaps because of a legal hitch I had anticipated when I added the double signature clause on large assets. He thought he had it all sorted out. That by removing himself from my future, he would make room for a new life. But the thing is, my future has never really depended on him. I spent the evening on the veranda, holding a glass of wine and a laptop on my lap. I went to the registration services website and changed my last name back to my maiden name. Then I updated my LinkedIn profile, choosing a photo of me smiling not at the camera, but at myself. I wasn't going to prove anything to anyone. I just lived. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I belonged to myself again. Ryan had always been sure that his charm could pull any situation off. In business, in relationships, even in marriage. He thought of himself as a nice guy, just someone who was tired of the routine and deserved a little happiness. He was telling this to a new girl, the same one he'd met, as fate would have it, at a conference in Phoenix. Her name was Tori. She was 26, had TikTok, a veneer smile, and 5,000 followers interested in her makeup bag. At first, everything went smoothly. They rented an apartment with a view of the canyon. Ryan ordered a new wardrobe, he wanted to look younger. He started posting acai berry breakfasts and filters on Instagram that made his skin smooth. Life seemed to have started anew. But 2 weeks later, he realized that Tori was allergic to nuts, hated it when someone chewed loudly, and spent 2 hours trying to choose a story filter. She didn't listen when he talked about his work. Instead, he had to listen to monologues about subscribers, trends, and brands that she hoped to appeal to. Meanwhile, Madison wasn't crying. She didn't text him, call him, or throw tantrums. Just disappeared from the radar. It was more terrifying than any scream. One night, lying next to Tori, he tried to go into his bank, just to check. At first, I didn't take it seriously. Invalid password, strange error. After 10 minutes, call the support service. Then everything happened like in a movie. Your authorization has been revoked. It is indicated that access is only through the main account holder, the polite girl said. He almost dropped the phone. What do you mean, basic? This is our shared account. Not anymore, sir. The data was updated. All management rights now belong only to Madison Harper. He was silent. He wanted to scream, but Tori was filming a dance for reels next to him. He realized that he had outplayed himself. While he was busy with his new life, Madison settled into hers, quietly, confidently. He left her the house because he thought it would make it easier for her, not knowing that this particular house was now her fortress. He thought he had taken the money, not knowing that he only had illusory access. He thought it would be broken. And she just changed the locks. And not just on the doors. The house began to breathe differently. The silence no longer rang with emptiness, but blossomed with possibility. Madison got up on Sunday without an alarm clock, made a pot of coffee in the Turk just like she liked it before Ryan, and felt safe for the first time in a long time. Not because of the locks or the alarm system. It was because no one else could disturb her peace of mind. There were flowers in the kitchen. She bought them for herself yesterday. Just like that. Later, sitting on the terrace, she opened her laptop. Not social networks, not a bank account, not emails. And a blank document is empty, like the beginning of something new. Headline, Second Chance. The rules are mine. For 15 years, Madison helped others build brands. In marketing, she was respected, but always a little in the shadows, because Ryan was louder, more visible. Now she decided, no shadow. She knew the market, knew how to find customers, how to sell not only a product, but an idea. Her idea. She registered an individual entrepreneur and rented a small office with a view of the city. It smelled of paint and new possibilities. The designer she once worked with was happy to join in. The first calls came in. She was back in the middle of the storm, but now she was holding the wheel herself. One evening, during a phone call with a new client, she stopped in the middle of a conversation. Madison, I'm sorry, but you sound like you came back from a war and won. There's something about the voice, a quiet power. Madison chuckled. That's probably true. She wasn't mad at Ryan. Not anymore. He was a part of her past, the one that pushed her not into the abyss, but up. Sometimes the way up begins with a fall. Now she didn't have his number on her phone. But there was a list of goals. Not loud, not for LinkedIn. And personal ones. Real ones. Run 5 kilometers. Do not postpone meetings with friends. Learn to say no, firmly, but with a smile. Never again lose yourself for someone else's comfort. It wasn't just a new stage. It was a new life, not of fragments, but of power. It's been a few weeks since the fateful day I received a text from him. At first, it was painful and hard to believe that everything had ended so suddenly. But with each passing day, I felt more and more strength and confidence growing inside me. I started to rebuild my life, got involved in my work, spent more time with my friends, and most importantly, started listening to myself. And then, at the most unexpected moment, the bell rang. He sounded nervous and cautious on the other end of the line. "Madison, please, can I talk to you for a second? I need to explain something." On the one hand, I knew that it could be a trap of emotions. On the other, I wanted to understand what motivates the person who left so suddenly. I decided to meet him. We set up a meeting in a small cafe near my house, a place that I didn't remember at all. When he came in, I noticed how much his appearance had changed, the set of his shoulders, the look of embarrassment and regret in his eyes. He began to talk, trying to justify himself, telling how the new other turned out to be a mistake, how he regrets his decisions and wants everything back. But to me, those were just empty words. I was no longer the kind of woman who blindly believed in promises and excuses. Keeping my cool, I told him directly, "You decided to leave on your own and take our money. You thought only of yourself. And I chose to go on without you, with pride and strength that you've never seen before." His eyes widened, he hadn't expected such calmness and determination. I saw the realization in his eyes that he'd lost me forever. And while I felt sorry for him, I didn't feel sorry for myself. On the contrary, I felt liberated, finally free from his deceit and betrayal. When I left the cafe, I realized that this was the last conversation between us. This meeting was the point of no return for me, the beginning of a new life in which I control my own destiny and no longer allow anyone to destroy my happiness. It's been a few days since that meeting. I woke up every morning with a feeling of lightness and inner peace that I hadn't known for a long time. Freedom is not just a word, it is a state of mind when you finally stop being afraid and start living on your own terms. Meanwhile, somewhere far away, he was trying to figure out what had happened. Checking the accounts, he found that all the money from our joint account was gone. The same account that he had so easily stolen and transferred to his personal bank was now empty. I made sure to protect myself and our savings beforehand. He called me, texted me, asked me to take everything back, promised to improve, begged me to give him another chance. But I already knew that this chapter of my life was closed forever. I didn't answer my phone, I didn't read my messages, because my happiness was too precious to waste on empty hopes and deceptions. I started doing things that I had been putting off for a long time, traveling, meeting friends, trying new things in my work and hobbies. I realized that all you need to be happy is to respect yourself and trust your feelings. When he realized that he had lost me not only as a wife, but also as a man who always stood by his principles, it was too late. I'm stronger, freer, and happier than ever. This is my story, the story of how betrayal was the beginning of a new life. And let everyone who reads these words know that in all circumstances, you always have a choice, to leave the past and go forward with pride and love for yourself.